fellow diamond painting addicts, and welcome back to Diamond Painting Anonymous. I'm Daphne, and I'm here today with another experiment. So, Diamond Art Club introduced a whole bunch of different kinds of new drills, including their fairy dust drills, which are essentially resin drills that have mica powder added into them during the process of making the drills. And I've only done one kit that had them in it, but they seem very popular. Everybody is carrying them. Anyone who sells drills is carrying the fairy dust drills, even though they have various different names: pixie dust, fairy dust, glitter dust, whatever it is. So I thought, I wonder if I can make drills look like fairy dust myself. So what I have decided to do, because I have mica powder. Now, I bought this mica powder a while ago because I was doing an experiment to see if I could hide some of the gapping in some of these drills that aren't so great, and it worked. The mica dust falls down in between, it hides the gapping. Now, you can get mica powder in all kinds of different colors. I have black and white, and I'm going to use white for this one. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put mica powder over the whole thing. I've got a little brush here to do it with. I'm going to try and avoid any of those super dark areas. If I get it on there, then I can go back over it with a baby wipe or something. And then I'm going to seal it and see if it looks like a fairy dust drill. So I have my mica powder here. I've got my brush. I'm going to seal it with some Mod Podge gloss. So when I get to that step, but I have it laid out on a towel because mica powder, if you've never used it, gets everywhere. It's kind of like glitter. I've left the little plastic on the top of it, and I peel it off every time I go to use it because it really is like glitter. It gets everywhere. So I'm just going to peel it up so that I can get to it, and then I'm going to dump a little bit of it here in the lid, and as you can see, it gets everywhere. So I'll need to wash myself off afterwards. Okay, so I'm just going to take my brush here, dip my brush in it, get some of the mica powder, and then I'm just going to start going over. Now, I'm going over it with a pretty heavy hand, as you can see. And you can see too that it's also filling in all of those little gaps. Now, this might not be something that you want. You might want to stick to just like these white drills, because then it's going to hide those gaps where up here it's kind of accentuating them. But I wanted to try this as an experiment, and I knew that was going to happen, so it's okay. I'm okay with that. I just want to see if I can make them look like the fairy dust drills and see how it works. So I'm not going to make you watch me put all of this mica powder over this whole kit, but I'm going to do that, and then I will come back when I'm ready to brush off any place that I think maybe I've put it on a little too cakey or whatever, and then we will see what it looks like, and then I'll seal it. Now, this isn't going to make everything look like fairy dust drills. I know that. The fairy dust drills are basically, the mica powder is inside the resin drills, but I wondered if I could do it this way with the mica powder enough that it would look like it, and I could make it look that way. Also, who uses all fairy dust drills on every single drill, right? That would be like doing an entire project with ABs. Speaking of, has anybody done that? Have you ever done an entire project where you substituted everything for ABs? I wonder what that would look like. Now again, I'm putting this on with kind of a heavy hand because I want to get it everywhere. And see, look how much mica powder I still have left, and I'm over halfway done with this. I probably have enough mica powder just in the lid here to do this entire painting. All right. So I'm going to finish this up, go around all the edges and everything. We'll see. I'll let you know if I have to dump any more powder in here, and I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Okay, so I think I've got it covered in mica powder as much as I want. Now, I will say, I don't really like how it looks here on the darker colors. This dark green up here, it looks way more white than I want it to. So I'm going to go grab a baby wipe and I'm going to kind of spot clean where there's like really dark colors and see if I can get the mica powder off a little bit there. But I do like how it hid all of the gapping down here in the white. Now, again, like here in the red where there's quite a bit of gapping and stuff, the white doesn't look great. I might wipe off some of it there too, just to see how that looks. So let me grab the baby wipes and I'll be right back. Now, I happen to have some baby wipes that I keep on hand for this, but if you don't have baby wipes, you can always use just a wet rag. Get it damp, not wet, because you just want to wipe off the top of the drills. You don't want to wipe off everything. So I think that's actually looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Just kind of going over it with the baby wipe, getting rid of some of that mica powder on the top. I don't know if I want to clean off in between some of these red spots. I think the purple looks pretty good. Mostly I just wanted to clean off this kind of dark green and black because I think having that white mica on top just made it look a little more white than I wanted it to. And if you're using a wet rag to do this, then of course you'd want to wring it out in between. I think I'm going to go over this just a little bit. I think that helped. There's still quite a bit of mica powder in between that I'm not thrilled about, but this was an experiment, so that's okay. I think just wiping off that top layer actually helps it look a little bit better. Okay, so if we look at this up close, you can see I can still brush mica powder off. I might take this out and just shake it a little bit to get some of the mica powder off, the loose mica powder, before I seal it. All right, I think that's looking pretty good. So if I lift it up, well, let me just zoom in closer. So you can see here where that gap has been filled in with the white that maybe isn't the greatest, but that's okay. However, down here where I've got all of the white, it's filled them in quite a bit. Now, I don't think I had any ABs in this, but some of these white, I don't think they all look like fairy dust, which is okay. That wasn't the point, but it does give them all kind of a nice sheen. So maybe it's a little bit more, and if I move it, I can see kind of the sheen of it a little bit better. Let me zoom back out. So I think I'm done with the mica powder, and I actually don't mind the way it looks. So now I need to put on my Mod Podge and see how it looks after that. And I thin out my Mod Podge 1-to-1 with water just so it's thinner. I'm also curious how the Mod Podge, because it is kind of liquid, it's going to settle down in the cracks as well. And then we'll see how that goes. Now, after I get the Mod Podge on, I usually go back over the drills with a baby wipe. So we'll see if I end up taking off a bunch of the mica powder as well. I could just leave it like this, but as you've seen, the mica powder gets everywhere. I've got it all over my hands. It's on my clothes. That's why I put this towel down. I do want to seal it, although I'm kind of liking the way it looks. Maybe not exactly like a fairy dust drill, like I said, but I'm still liking it. Let me get the Mod Podge thinned out, get a thin coat of it on, and then we'll do the baby wipes across it and see if I also wipe off all the mica powder. It's an experiment. Let's see how it goes. Okay, so I've got my Mod Podge. I've got it in a little container. I've thinned it down kind of 1-to-1, so it's pretty milky. So I'm going to put it on the painting, and let's see what happens. So when you're putting on the Mod Podge, don't worry about it getting pretty heavy between the drills. That's okay. It dries clear, so you won't be able to see it once it's dry. And it actually is helpful while you're putting on the sealer, because you can kind of see where you've been to know where you need to apply the sealer next. And of course, you could do this with a much larger brush than I'm using here. This is just the one that I happen to have handy, and it's the one that I use most of the time when I am applying sealer. And you can see there are bubbles as well. Don't worry about those either. Those will pop and disappear as you go over everything. I'm kind of wondering though how this is going to look, if this is just going to wipe off all of my mica powder, except for what was in between the drills. But that's why this is an experiment. Because if I can make my own fairy dust, then I don't have to buy them, right? Mica powder is pretty inexpensive. But thinking it all the way through, which I clearly did not do before I started this process, then the Mod Podge may hide or wipe off because it's liquid. I mean, I put enough on there. I don't think it's going to do that. Okay, so now I've got the whole thing with the Mod Podge on it. What I want to do is go back over it lightly with a baby wipe just to get some of this off of the top of the drills so it doesn't dull the drills. And we'll hope that it doesn't wipe off all the mica powder. It might wipe off all the mica powder. Let me be very clear. This is an experiment for me, so I'll just have to see how this goes. If it does wipe off all the mica powder, then I know that my idea did not work. Okay, now I just need to let it dry and we'll come back and see. Although in kind of looking at it, I'm thinking that some of the, or most of the fairy dust came off, the mica powder came off. But we'll see what it looks like when it's dry. So I'm going to give it about half an hour or so to dry, let all of the Mod Podge dry clear, and then I'll come back. Don't go anywhere. Okay, I've waited about half an hour for the Mod Podge to be dry. And I think I'm going to call this a mixed success. It's not quite a failure. So if you look really closely, like up here at the top, you can see some of the mica powder still here on top of the purple drills. Maybe it has something to do with the colors. I can still see it a little bit here on the green, but for the most part, really the only place that I see the mica powder is in between all of the drills where you can kind of see that kind of shine. It didn't stick to the top of the drills, which makes sense. Again, if I had thought this all the way through, putting on the mica powder and then going over it with a liquid Mod Podge and wiping a bunch of it away, likely wiped away a bunch of the mica powder. That only makes sense. So I'm kind of bummed that it didn't work, but at least now I know, right? So if I want to use the mica powder to fill in the gaps in between some of the lighter ones, and somebody asked, mica powder comes in a million different colors. I happen to get 2 bottles of this 50 grams of white, and then I have another one of black. But you can get it in pretty much every color of the rainbow, and you can get it in much smaller packages than this. If you had a painting that had gappy drills and you wanted to take the time to go in and put in colors so that this was red, this was yellow, etc., then you could do that. I was really, for this project, just much more interested in whether or not I could make my own fairy dust drills. Now, I think it does add a little something because there is a little bit of extra shimmer because of the mica powder in a couple of places, but it did not hang on the way that I thought. And maybe it's just because I spent too much time wiping it off. Like, I feel like you can see it here on this purple as well, but like the red, I mean, it's there, but it's just super faint and not what I was expecting that it would look like. And it certainly does not look like the fairy dust drills that you can buy. I guess I'm just going to call this a sort of successful experiment. I mean, it did stay in some of the places, but it didn't coat, the mica powder didn't stay and coat the drills the way that I was hoping. But it's a cute painting. It's sealed now. It's still a little bit flexible. That's one of the things when you put on the Mod Podge, if you thin it out and put on a thin coat, it doesn't get quite as stiff as other sealants can. So that's one of the reasons I like it for sealing. And even though this was the gloss Mod Podge, wiping off the top of it with the baby wipes means that it's not as glossy as you think it's going to be. So I guess you could skip that step, but I never know if that's going to dull the shine of the drills, and I'd rather the drills shine through. I will say, kind of looking at it at an angle, I can see more of the mica powder than I can just looking at it straight on. So maybe it'll make a difference if you hung it up or whatever. All right, so there's my experiment. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Did you think it would work? Did you know it was not going to work before I even started? Like I said, I get an idea and I want to try it out before I've thought it all the way through. And obviously, if I'd stopped to think it through, I would have realized it probably wasn't going to work the way that I wanted. But it does hide several of the gaps, and I don't think it looks bad. Especially, like I said, up at the edges, I can see kind of a little bit of the mica powder, and it looks cool. So I'm happy with the way it turned out, even if it didn't turn out the way that I thought it would. That's it for me today, guys. Thanks so much for sticking around till the end of the video. Before you leave, don't forget to do all the things. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and hit that bell notification icon so that you can be informed of future uploads. And as always, guys, thanks so much for watching.